Over the last 20 years, we've been lucky enough to see regular CD and vinyl releases of the original music scores to many classic Anderson shows and films, Richard, as you know, Space Precinct included, in fact.
Yes.
Now, it's not just the Barry Gray scores, which are probably the most famous. We've also had CD releases of John Cameron's score for The Protectors, Richard Harvey's score for Terrorhawks, Crispin Morell's scores for Space Precinct and New Captain Scarlet, and Derek Wadsworth's score for the second season of Space 1999, which Silver Screen are currently reissuing on CD and vinyl very soon. In fact, there's some news about the Space 1999 vinyl in the news shortly. How fortuitous. However, one of the few Colour Anderson productions that hasn't seen a release of any of its music, and probably never will, sadly, is the 1976 TV special, The Day After Tomorrow, also known as Into Infinity. Produced between the two seasons of Space 1999, this one-off television special was the first time that Derek Wadsworth had worked with Dad, and it was Derek's score for the special that got him the job for Space 1999 Year 2. So he must have done a good job.
Yeah.
Derek composed some lovely music for the special. However, he did not retain the music when the project was completed. Instead, he delivered the 24-track master of his score for the episode to publishers Panache Music, who unfortunately went into liquidation soon after when their managing director crashed his private plane in the mountains of Scotland.
Wow.
It's a bit dark, isn't it?
Yes.
The assets of Panache Music, along with their unfortunately named parent company, Mountain Music and Management...
Really?
Changed hands several times after that, but unfortunately Derek was never able to get to the bottom of where the score eventually ended up. It has, to all intents and purposes, disappeared into infinity.
Oh, good. I see what you did there.
Do you get it? Do you get it? Or he could have said into a black hole. I mean, any of these things would have been fine. However, Derek did retain a tape containing a 2-track copy of the programme's main title theme until one day he was visited by a good friend of his from America. Right. Now, we're not going to name that person because they are a friend of the podcast and might not appreciate us doing so.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, this person convinced Derek to let him take the tape back to the States so that a friend of his could copy it, do a bit of clean-up job on it, and return it sounding better than ever. Derek agreed, gave the tape to his chum, and this friend went back to the States and arranged for his friend to pick up the tape at Los Angeles Airport.
Okay, so far so good.
It went very smoothly, in fact. The friend put the tape into his briefcase, put the briefcase into the car, went off to do something else for a bit, only to return to find that the car had been broken into, and the briefcase containing the last known tape of the score for The Day After Tomorrow had been stolen.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yep.
Wow.
So, all in all, a very unfortunate and rather tragic sequence of events, which mean we will probably never hear The Day After Tomorrow on CD or vinyl anytime soon. However, if you happen to have any reliable information regarding where the score might be today, or even if you were the person who broke into that car, perhaps, in LA, and has been holding on to that precious tape ever since, we would love to hear from you. We promise we won't get the police involved.
Right.
We'd just like to get the music back. So hand it over quietly, and nothing will be said, okay? Thank you very much. Please do email us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk if you have any information of the whereabouts of the missing tape.
Wow.
Or tapes.
How interesting.
It's a great shame, isn't it? Because it is a very cool score. And as we've talked about before, that very 70s thing, which Benji Clifford has repeated for 5 Star 5, having the kind of the title of the show or the feature in the music, in the melody. It's rather sad, isn't it?
It is sad. What I find interesting, Jamie, is that around the period of Space 1999, Series 1 and 2, seems very fertile ground for Gerry Anderson. I mean, there's 5 Star 5 was in the offing around the same time. Something else that I'm working on for you at the moment, I think, was spawned around about the same time. There was Into Infinity. I mean, it's I suppose Gerry was at the head of a sort of a working proposition at that point, wasn't he? So I suppose he was suddenly an attractive offer, wasn't he? A producer with a series.
He wasn't, because obviously, Space Season 2, Space had not been seen as that much of a success, so they got Freddie Freiberger in, and then maybe that was seen as a bit toxic, and maybe these things aren't being as commercially successful as possible. So if anything, I reckon this period of creativity was sort of born out of frustration. But you know, Dad wrote material with Fred Freiberger after season 2. I've got a film script in the filing cabinet here that they worked on together. They worked on they worked on the project that you're talking about together briefly. Various things like that. And obviously Dad had cultivated a relationship with Tony Barwick for a long time, and so another project that he and Tony Barwick were working on, which I was looking at this morning, which had been lost so far, it was from that period. Plus he was doing some work with Keith Shackleton on things like Star Cruiser to try and bring up the sort of Gerry Anderson merchandising side. So there was a lot of kind of opportunity and frustration combined, which almost led to a really prolific kind of third decade, but didn't quite make it. And it was only when Terrorhawks came along that he really made it. So
interesting.